So I'm sitting here chatting with Mr. Pete Bottomley. He's responsible for White Paper Games. Mr. Bottomley, could you tell us your role at the studio?
Yeah, so I'm co-founder and game designer at Whitepaper.
Excellent. Now, in case you're not familiar with White Paper Games, they are responsible for the fantastic adventure game FR1. Now, FR1 was sort of about going through somebody's memories and
Hmm.
sort of repairing them in a way. Because the person had dementia. It was a very emotional story, very interesting, well written, I've got to say. One of my favorite adventure games in recent years. Now, they're
Thank you.
working on something very, very new: The Occupation. Good sir, could you tell us a bit about your game?
Yeah, so it's again first-person narrative-driven. We definitely wanted to stay in that vein. We took the things that we felt like we succeeded at with Ether, like you mentioned, the narrative-driven stuff. But we also wanted to add kind of an extra level of gameplay with this. With Ether, it's very linear, solve puzzles, get the narrative, and although we love those kind of games, like when it came out, people were comparing it to, Myst meets Gone Home. I thought that was a great comparison. But with this game, I'm personally more interested in the immersive simulation genre, which are games like Dishonored, Thief, Deus Ex, those kind of first person approach the level however you want to play the game. Now, obviously, if you've seen the trailer, it's like you'd never expect to really compare it with those games. It's not got combat, it's not got RPG elements, it's not got any of that stuff in there. But the core of the gameplay, I guess, is this world that's alive with characters walking around and they have their own motives and behaviors. And you're kind of there as this journalist on the event of this attack happening, and it's your job to kind of figure out what's happened and make your own mind about what the truth is for the public. I guess that's weird because it's the first time I've verbalized that kind of game description for like a press type thing. So it's kind of cool
Oh.
to get that down. But yeah, that's essentially the game. Sorry, it was kind of a more long-winded version,
No,
but
no,
yeah,
that's good.
that's essentially the game.
We are long-winded over here. So now, you've described it a little. So does it play more like FR1 then? Or is there a bit more of a change to the gameplay?
Yeah, so there's definitely a change to gameplay. Again, it's the game can be played at your own pace, which is the main thing. I think that's the hangover for me that I'm personally not a skill-based player. I don't like, um, if I can't progress through a level, it's because of my bad reaction time. So anything like that. So with this game, it's a fixed play length. Um, and so the game takes place over a set number of hours. Right now, it's 4.5 hours, but obviously things may change in development. But the main thing to take away from that is that it's fixed length and the world is simulating around you, like I said. So there's these core character arcs in the game. There's workers in this government facility building. It's on the day that a big act is passing. Fictionally, we're calling it the Union Act, loosely based around real world events such as the Patriots Act. But yeah, then in here is an investigative reporter, and the world is, moving and changing around you. People are going around trying to do their jobs. You know, they will go and have meetings with each other. If they are getting stressed out, they'll go and have a drink of coffee, or they'll go outside and smoke. And none of this is pre-scripted. It's all just happening around you. It's a simulating world.
Okay, well,
So in that respect, you could go and sit on a bench in a corridor and just watch the world go by, and the game would carry on progressing, which is kind of the interesting kind of overall structure of the game that we got going on. So in terms of the comparison with Ether, I would say that would be the only kind of natural progression forward from that Ether's gameplay into the Occupation's gameplay.
I see. That makes sense. It reminds me a little bit of the design. Trying to recall, like it's the way that the Ultima games were designed a bit.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And those okay, so that's kind of the natural stepping stone there for me is that the people that were at Looking Glass creating System Shock went on to create the Bioshocks, the Thieves, the Deus Exes. Their inspirations were the Ultimate games, so that was their kind of stamp on the genre. Hopefully, I mean, we're a small team, we're trying to create this game, but hopefully this is a natural progression of, I'm not saying we're changing anything in the genre, I'm just hoping that this is our own take on that genre of games.
I see, that makes sense. So how long has this one been in development?
So I'm going to say about 18 months. I feel like it's 18 months. It's probably slightly longer than that, but the full team, we released Ether on PC in March of 2014, and that was on the Unreal Engine 3. And so to get it, we released on PlayStation 4 the year after, but to do that we had to change engines. We changed from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4, released in May on PS Plus in 2015. So since then is when the kind of full team has been on the game, apart from, support for Ether. But I guess it only really got into full swing of September of 2015. So yeah, that's the long answer. Let's just say 18 months though, for clarity.
I see. Yeah, no, you guys, how many people are on your team right now?
So we have 8 people. And I mentioned to you just before the interview, we did have 6 people on Ether, so we kind of, if you looked at both games, you'd see a natural progression, I hope, in terms of kind of focus of what we're trying to achieve. And obviously we have 3D characters this time, and the biggest restraint of a small team is 3D characters and AI and all that kind of stuff, which is why games like Ether, Gone Home, Vanishing Ethan Carter, all of those games, we obviously did not have 3D characters because it's such a huge drain on production. But with this game, we wanted to take the natural step. We felt like it was a natural evolution to bring characters into a world. We still wanted them in a contained environment. We want meaningful character design. And by that, I mean, we took huge inspiration from how Elizabeth in BioShock Infinite interacts with the world, and she'll go and pick flowers up, and she'll know about her surroundings, and she'll know how Buck is feeling, and hopefully she's just more reactive to the world that is around us. So that's where we took a kind of, it sounds crazy to say, yeah, this small indie team took a benchmark from BioShock Infinite, but it was kind of our starting point of where we wanted to get to. And so, yeah, that's where the characters came in. That's where the kind of 2 extra team members fit in with AI implementation and animation. And so, yeah.
No, that makes sense. Because though I'm not too familiar with BioShock Infinite, I do know that a lot of people really love the character of Elizabeth and, the way she interacted with things and such. So, it's a perfectly good source of inspiration. So now, the other thing I wanted to ask is, so now that you're, how did you get your start into the game industry?
So I think it was very different than a lot of people, and it's kind of, I guess it's more prevalent now that small teams development is able to be successful with tools and whatnot available. But I graduated from a bachelor's program, and then also did a kind of work placement in between a bachelor's and a master's degree at a company called TT Fusion, which create the Lego games. So it's stuff like, it was like a Lego Rock Band. I did some kind of camera work on there, and the Clone Wars on DS. Did some level design, but my master's program was kind of like, okay, it's looking at all these tools that are out, and it was kind of based around technical limitations hindering or helping creativity and all this kind of stuff. And Unreal was just moving out of the kind of, it just got its UDK phase where small teams could release games and whatever. So myself and another graduate from the master's degree kind of decided to set up a studio. We quickly became 5 core people, I believe it was at the time. And then it took us maybe 4 years to release Ether. It was a long development process, but that was because, you kind of have to establish a team and figure out who you are as a studio and the culture and all that kind of stuff that comes with setting up a studio. And so we're really lucky, all of us, to kind of just have this shared goal in mind. So everyone's just like, yeah, Ether's the game that we want to create. Let's just focus on making that. And that was a struggle because we didn't have a publisher. We got some support of a fund, but apart from that, it was pretty much just put money into the company wherever we could, and hopefully Ether would be the game to kind of help us get set up and keep building as a studio. Thankfully, it did that with the PC and PlayStation release, and so now it's, we're focusing on the occupation and where we go from here next.
So what would you say have been some of your biggest challenges as a developer so far, and as a small studio?
I mean, I would say it's kind of an issue. It's an issue, but it's not necessarily something that we've faced, but I see happening a lot. Is getting the right team dynamic and skill set in a small studio, because everyone kind of needs to be on that kind of aligned goal of what you're producing, and that can be tough when there's multiple people with like shared creative visions. I think we handle that pretty well. I mean, the main thing when we were hiring for this project was that everyone coming onto the team should be a game designer. Like, there's no specific just lead game designer at the studio or anything like that. Everyone kind of contributes to gameplay design. Most people just class themselves as a developer just because everyone's kind of contributes into the design or the tech or implementation in some shape or form. That can be a definite challenge. I mean, I kind of feel like we only purely have technical-based challenges. So we're complaining about why is this character's foot sliding on the stairs, or like just crazy things like that. We're trying to really push. I guess we're self-critical about the quality of our own game, so we just really want to focus on the tiny details. I mean, but you face challenges daily. It's like, getting people to hear about your game, Steam becoming so busy that you can't get your game noticed, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's all stuff that's incredibly important, but you hear all the time anyway, so it'd be silly of me to just repeat everything because I know everyone's kind of facing the same challenges, and right now I guess there's no real solution to that issue right now. I know Valve wanted to do a few things on the platform. Thankfully, thankfully console, the kind of dev relations people are incredibly supportive. The Unreal Engine, like, we're using Unreal, and I guess this is the one thing that comes up quite frequently in conversation with us using Unreal Engine, and it's crazy the amount of small teams that just aren't using the engine yet. I mean, obviously you use the tools that most benefit your game, but there's a lot of hang-up left over from the Unreal 3 days and how hard it was to create a game on there. But Epic are so good at, giving you a platform to shout about with your game. We've done so many shows with them. It kind of gives you that professionalism to your game, and so that's been a massive help. So I guess the challenges are mostly technical, apart from the obvious challenges that everyone's facing on a daily basis.
Now, now one of the things you mentioned, you brought up Steam. Do you feel like releasing a game in 2014 is a lot different than it's going to be releasing one in 2017?
Yeah, I honestly, I have no idea. I mean, I feel like it was tough in 2014 anyway. There's still a massive barrier there. I believe, I could be wrong in this, but for us anyway, I believe that a good game will always come to the top, and I don't mean to, that does not mean that there are obviously edge cases where excellent games have been released but have not done as well as they should do, and that's definitely an issue. The cost of game development, even, like, we keep our costs down to a minimum. Like, we really don't. We try to spend as very little money on development as possible, but it is expensive, and the distribution sales don't necessarily always reflect the money that you invested into the game, even when you're trying to just do it at a minimum cost. So there's an issue there with obviously the price of games, the cost of development, and the amount of units that you're selling to hopefully then develop and build another game. So that, I mean, that's a big issue. But at the same time, we have this awesome platform with Steam and even, you know, the digital marketplace on console, where it allows you to put your game out there. And Ether, I mean, as you know, Ether was very much a slow burn, and it kind of came out. And if you, I mean, even now, if you ask the average person, average gamer, have you heard of Ether 1? Like, most people will say no. Most people haven't heard of it, which is fine. It still did well enough for us to develop the next game. So I feel like if you invest everything and it has an interesting core idea and you really want to say something with your game and you follow that through, hopefully there's enough people out there to kind of connect with that game, which allows you to create another game. And so I think you can, I mean, you still get lost in the noise to an extent, but Ether was that kind of same situation where it came out, no one knew about it, but slowly and slowly you get more and more sales. And I think it's the word of mouth style of marketing where it's like, oh, have you played this game yet? And thankfully, when the reviews came in, it gave us a really solid Metacritic standard. We got like 82 Metacritic. And then when people go on your Steam page and you can kind of see the awards you've nominated for and they see Metacritic score, I think they're more willing to invest. I think it's when a game doesn't have any of that stuff and it kind of looks interesting and okay, but it's like, oh, but I'll leave it for the next time, because there's still thousands and thousands of people that have Ether on their wish list after however many sales, and they just, you know, they don't take that dive just yet. So it's an issue for games. Coming back around in 2017, what does the kind of climate look like to release a game? I honestly have no idea. It definitely worries me in the fact that we've spent more on this game than we did on Ether, and we're in a certain place development-wise, and we want to get the game out. And regardless of making profit, it's recouping the money that we put in working on the game to then help us develop another game. But again, it's something that all developers face, and fingers crossed we connect with enough people that find enjoyment in our kind of games. And it helps now that we've released Ether and now we've got another game, and that is slowly branching out to build a kind of almost like a portfolio of games where it helps your studio generate the revenue that you need to keep being sustainable. Yeah.
Okay, no, it makes sense. Now, I'm obligated to ask this of every developer. What is your favorite game of all time? Go.
It's a tough one. So I've got three answers to this. And as just a purely something that inspired me to get into games is just got to be Doom. Like, I played Doom, didn't put it down. So Doom is that game for me, but it's not my favorite game of all time. Gameplay-wise, mechanically, is Dishonored. Dishonored got me into really focusing on who I wanted to be as a developer, and it definitely inspires me. Like, the Dishonored comes up on a daily basis in the studio, but as someone that wants to sit at home and enjoy a game experience, it's got to be The Last of Us. So I kind of cheated with the three games, but hopefully
you love them all for different reasons, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, the other thing that I have to ask every developer, so what's your favorite part of the development process?
So I feel like you need to enjoy the entire process, which again is kind of sitting on the fence there, but there's kind of an excitement of finishing a game and like, okay, what do we do next? And it's kind of just that blank canvas of like all these different ideas, and you kind of get inspiration from everywhere. It's like all these like crazy things, and they kind of get refined down, and then it's over the last few months, it's like, oh wow, now we have a clear vision for the game. So that's kind of interesting. But there's something about, especially this trailer, getting the content for the trailer together, and we've got the first playable at Brest in London next week, where we'll have all our screens set up and the public will be able to play the game. And there's something excitement about just seeing this demo, and it's just like, that's broken, that's broken, that's broken. It's just broken everywhere. You play the game for 10 minutes, and you just have a list of 50 things you want to fix. But though you just tick them off. It's just such a satisfying thing when you just, grinding off all those hard edges of the game, and then everyone sits down and plays it on a Friday afternoon, and they're just like, you know what, there's something interesting here. You're so focused on what's broken, and you're just trying to fix. You kind of step away from it and just play, and there's something really rewarding about that. So yeah.
Oh, it's very interesting. Because I can understand that entirely, just seeing a thing coming together,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
no, your video game is going to be a political thriller.
Mhm.
That's not entirely unusual in a world of video games, especially ones based on real-life events. For instance, there was 1979 Revolution.
Yeah.
Do you feel that we're going to see more of these sorts of games moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I'd love to say, yeah, I hope so. I don't necessarily think every game has to be like that. I think games can just tell whatever story they want to tell, and I don't think everything has to have some kind of socioeconomic impacts or anything like that. Just the kind of games that we like to create. Obviously, with Ether, had the focus on mental illness. For us, when starting this project, politics was a very strong subject in the studio, but it's not. This game isn't about, these are our political views, you should believe these views, listen to us. It's not like that. It's kind of just, this is what is happening in the world right now. Whether you want to engage with it or not, that's totally fine. We're kind of presenting it in such a way in our game where we just present you with all these real world parallels, which kind of presents, because a lot of this can become noise. Politics, people kind of shut down. It's just like, I don't care. It's not really affecting me. And that's a totally valid opinion to have. But hopefully with this game, it's kind of presenting it in a fictional way in such that it kind of reflects real, like the current events of the world. And it's kind of like, it kind of makes you think. And we kind of set up the game in such a way where it's like, okay, you've kind of been presented with all this information. Do you care about that? And the player can be like, no, I'm going to go over here. Or they can be like, wow, yeah, I did not know this was a thing. I'm going over there. And it's kind of like the whole meaningful choice in games, and we definitely want to bring focus to that. But I don't think it's necessary in game. We just personally like doing that. And yeah, you'll see a lot of games tackling that. Another one we brought up, 1979. I've not had a chance to play that, but I've seen it and it looks fascinating. And there's also like a more stylized, more gameplay focused game called Off Grid, which is again Edward Snowden inspired, which looks really cool as well. But yeah, I mean, just as a team, we like developing those kind of games. But we'll see what developers start bringing.
I really like your approach to just the way your game's going to handle politics. So I say this speaking as an author personally. For instance, I wrote a book a while back about a boy whose parents had him cloned. And the thing about this book is I didn't want to tell readers what to think about the politics surrounding human cloning. I mean, that's some murky waters right there.
Sure.
However, I wanted to leave it sort of open to them to... I mean, I did have a specific message that I wanted to impart, specifically that if we ever see human clones, well, let's think of them as humans first and clones later. But also, I wanted people to come away with their own ideas. And so this is what you're aiming for with your own game.
Exactly. Yeah, and I never, like, just as a personal thing, I think the team feels the same about this as well. We never want to kind of force the ideas down people's throat. And I think, again, like you played Ether, and so I guess the parallel here is that if you want to play a puzzle game that has some narrative to it, you can play that puzzle game. And I mean, you may not think too heavily about the dimension side of things, and it may just have been an interesting puzzle game to you. That's fine. the people that kind of want to pull apart the narrative and read all the small notes dotted around the houses and the more environmental storytelling side of the game, you come away with a much different experience. And I think that's again another parallel that we're taking into the occupation, is that we kind of just present the player with all these events happening in the world, which will reflect real world events, not in a literal way, but definitely inspired by. And yeah, just let them kind of take the game at their own pace and digest what they want to digest. And the kind of last sentence of the game description is, you are the reporter, you decide the narrative, and that's definitely something we want to take forward. It's kind of you deciding the outcome of that game.
That makes sense. Another, I got a little, it's getting a little busy in the background. But another, oh sure.
Sorry about that.
It's okay if there's a little background noise. I get it. You guys are working.
Mm-hmm.
But another reason that I like your approach to this is because it stands so much it flies in the face of the criticism that games aren't art because the artist isn't going to be conveying a specific idea, because people can experience it any way they want, Like, if you were to watch a political thriller film, you're going to come away with a very specific message. Whereas if somebody plays your game, they're going to come away with whatever message, they're going to come away with their own set of ideas. And so, but what you're doing basically is you're proving, hey, this is another way to experience art. And I really like that. So
yeah, I hope it is that. I don't really have too much to add to that point, other than we kind of just invest all of ourselves into these games. It's not just something that we forget about when we leave the studio. We're always just thinking about it, adding things to it. And so we're just putting our own, I guess we're just investing ourselves into it. And if that is the portrayal of art and how people connect with it, then that's awesome. And people may disagree, agree, and that's totally fine. It kind of creates the dialogue, and that's something that we found with Ether. Was it kind of just opened up, like the game was finished, packaged, kind of sent off into that digital space, and then we'd get emails back. And I think we even had a few conversations actually. And it's just people engaging in connection and talking about how a parent was playing with their child and the child started asking about their grandparents. And it kind of just created this whole conversation around it. We've had so many lovely emails about how Ether helped them engage with something that was going on in their life. And so if we can bring that to the next game, that would be excellent.
That sounds beautiful, mate. So now, when can we expect to see this game, The Occupation?
That is a very good question, and one that I'm so hesitant to answer because, like, when is the game done? And it's always kind of, you say a date and then it's 3 months after that date. I mean, to be just, I guess, to give the answer that I'm feeling in my head rather than the sensible answer, we're aiming for October of this year. And now that is very soon, and the game is in a very good place, and lots of stuff needs to be in place for that to happen. But that being said, there's also the kind of, okay, there's people that want to help publish the game, and we're still self-publishing so far. But like I said, with Ether, it's that thing of trying to get your game out through the noise and put it on this platform that makes people hear about it and want to get invested with it. So a publisher can help us do that. So that's definitely a conversation that we're wanting to have. And again, going back to the current games industry, it seems like a lot of publishers want to kind of put all their chips in one basket, as it were. And by that, I mean big headliner, simultaneous release. It comes out on all the platforms, console, PC, everything, all at once, and you kind of just push it. And for that to happen, that October would not hit for us. October is our date for a peak. Again, this is a kind of a longer description of probably what you wanted, but for what we want to do is kind of take the same route as Ether. We self-published on PC, then took it over to console, and it's much easier for us to handle. So for it to release in October, it would have to just be PC only. If it was to be console as well, we'd be looking at February of 2018. So that's the kind of time frame that you're looking for. Again, nothing is set in stone, and I apologize now if we end up missing that date, but that's kind of definitely internally what we're working towards.
Okay. Well, no, it's good you have a goal. You know, you have a rough window to aim for. Well, very
Exactly.
nice. So now, you guys aren't announcing any platforms quite yet, are you?
What was that? Sorry.
Are you guys announcing any platforms yet, or no?
No,
Yeah.
and like just from releasing this trailer, that's been the number one thing. It's like, where can I play this? And it's not that we're kind of being smart and kind of we'll do a platform announce in 2 weeks kind of thing. It's just that we've not really spoken. Like I genuinely don't know if Steam even want the game, for example. Like I believe that they would, but again, it's not something we've kind of set in stone. Like we've not spoken to Valve yet. And similarly with the consoles, like obviously we released Ether on PlayStation. We're definitely hoping to bring it to every platform. And Unreal, because we use Unreal, they kind of distribute to every platform. So there's no technical reason why we couldn't get onto the platforms. It's just about having those conversations and bringing it to as many platforms as people want, really. So we'll definitely get it out to anything that we can.
Now, another thing, I'm going to be wrapping up soon, but I notice you
Yeah.
have a couple of VR headsets in the background. Are you planning on bringing this game
Yes.
to virtual reality?
Should have planned this better, shouldn't I? Okay. We want to say yes. Someone from VR Focus emailed yesterday, and they're kind of like they kind of gave Ether a really good review when it first came out, and they're just like, okay, is this coming to VR? Like, we want to see it on VR. And the answer is we love VR. We've got the Vive, we've got the PSVR stuff. We love checking out VR. And so that's definitely a focus for us. But right now it's getting the game.
Just ready in general?
Yeah, but with that said, when we started production on the game, a key kind of pillar for us to hit was we want every mechanic to work well with VR. So every design decision we've made since then, we said, okay, how would this work in VR? So we are making those conscious decisions, and we're trying to be as optimized as we can in game production, keeping frame rates high. And that's pure, like that's our workflow, but also just so we can get it onto other platforms if we're able to. So yeah, VR is definitely, again, like every other platform, it's on the table. I would absolutely love to get a PSVR game out there and get the Occupation on Vive on Steam. But again, it's nothing confirmed, and it's not because we're holding off. It's just like we will do it as soon as we can.
No.
I mean, I think a lot of people with Unreal, you kind of plug the HMD headset in and it works, and that's awesome. But there's so much tweaking to do, and for a small team as well, that's a massive time constraint. And 60 FPS every day. Like as content flies in, you're not hitting the frame rates at all times. So it's like we'll plug the headset in, we'll play the game. It's like, oh, this is feeling cool, but then we'll put it down again for a couple of months and then keep trying it. So
Gotta keep
one
cutting
of
your
those
vertices.
exactly. Less polys in this area kind of thing. That being said, polygons aren't an issue with VR. It's more the kind of texture,
Yeah.
how many textures it's rendering, draw calls more than anything. But yeah, that's getting into a completely different discussion.
Now, are you at liberty to say any? Are you at liberty? I mean, I don't want you to go into too many details because spoilers and stuff might change. But are you at liberty to say any of the changes that you had to make for optimizing in VR?
Yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing, no changes that we had to make because, again, like I said at the start, it was a core pillar for us to want to hit, and that's not saying we are doing VR. It's more, this is something that we are interested in, and I spoke briefly about this last year. There was a Unreal Engine event in London, and a lot of developers, whether this is right or wrong, this is just kind of how we feel as a studio, is that if we're working on this 18 to 24-month game cycle, if you look at where VR was 18 months ago, it's in a massively different place now. And PCs can handle a lot more graphics cards change. Epic on the Unreal Engine make just huge performance gains. Just like 6 months ago, they were like, here's a performance boost. It cuts 50% optimization. So all of a sudden you have double the amount of freedom to work with, which is crazy. So rather than, again, day by day, trying to say, are we hitting this specific thing? I think we try to create the game that we want to create first and foremost. We keep optimization and development in mind, keep all the gameplay mechanics working nicely with VR, and then we'll see where we're at when the game, is in that final 3 to 4 months and getting those massive performance wins in place. Thankfully, because of the art style, we go with relatively low poly art style similar to Ether, but we're definitely, trying to push it a lot more in this game, but it's still relatively low poly compared to most games with hand-painted texturing. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that we're keeping a constant eye on, but there's nothing really slowing down production in terms of VR, and we wouldn't. Some studios are kind of opting into the kind of VR-specific route where they just make a whole game for VR, and for me, that seems a little bit dangerous right now. I don't think there's enough people invested in VR, and I think your game needs to, first and foremost, work with either a controller or a keyboard and mouse. And I think as long as you create a great experience with the VR headset, people aren't going to mind if it's optional VR. At least that's where we stand, I think.
Yeah, because the way I think about it is, the first movie that I got to see in 3D was the film Hugo, and I'm not sure if you've seen that one in 3D. But, I mean, it's a fantastic movie on its own. However, the way it was shot with 3D in mind. So that if you were watching it in 3D, it would actually work, as opposed to something that was redone in 3D in post, so it just doesn't look quite as good.
Yeah. I think that's definitely, I mean, as long as you're making conscious decisions. I mean, we have developer friends at studios who are working on pure just VR titles, and the stuff that they're doing is amazing. For a smaller team like ours, I feel like
that's risky.
It would be very dangerous, yeah. It would be very dangerous to do that, I think.
So now, let's say folks want to find out more about The Occupation. Where can they go?
Occupation-game.com, or just go to whitepapergames.com. You'll find all the social feeds and everything there. We're just basically at White Paper Games on most social media.
Very nice. Now, let's say people want to follow you. Where can they hit?
At Pete_Bottomley. BOTTOMLEY.
Very nice. Well, Mr. Bottomley, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I cannot wait to see more of The Occupation in the coming days and months.
Cool.
I just can't wait to see your game. I'm sure.
Awesome.
I mean, based on how good FR1 was, I'm sure this one's going to be awesome. So, yeah.
Don't put that pressure on us. We're definitely working as hard as we can and trying to raise the kind of bar of what we did previously. But yeah, I appreciate the kind words.
Well, I mean, your work elevates games creatively. So I mean, you guys have a very high standard, I think, already. So I mean, the pressure's not coming from me. I think you guys put enough on yourselves. So.
Yeah, I think we definitely have kind of personal standards that we set for ourselves. It's not necessarily thinking about externally what they should do. It's just each of us are creating these things, and we just want to put as much into it as possible.
But yeah, so it has been fantastic chatting. I hope
cool.
I'm going to let you get back to work now because I think it's time. So.
I just keep saying notification. I'm just like, oh my god, there's so much still to do today. Thank you very much.
Have a great
it's been
day,
awesome
man.
chat. Yeah, thank you very much. You too.